Question 1. System analysis indicates a significant operational risk related to lease compliance within the real estate portfolio, potentially leading to financial penalties and reputational damage. The IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 application has identified this risk through its reporting module. Which of the following is the most appropriate course of action to address this identified risk? Option A. Develop and implement a detailed risk mitigation plan within TRIRIGA, including specific action items, responsible parties, and timelines, and utilize TRIRIGA workflow and reporting features to track progress and ensure resolution. Option B. Acknowledge the risk in the TRIRIGA system but continue with existing operational procedures, assuming they are sufficient to manage the risk. Option C. Assign the responsibility of addressing the risk to the most senior real estate manager without providing specific tools or defined processes within TRIRIGA for its management. Option D. Document the identified risk in a separate report and file it for future reference, without initiating any immediate mitigation actions. Correct answer is A. Develop and implement a detailed risk mitigation plan within TRIRIGA, including specific action items, responsible parties, and timelines, and utilize TRIRIGA workflow and reporting features to track progress and ensure resolution. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in real estate management, where a significant operational risk is identified that could impact the financial performance and compliance of a property portfolio. The professional challenge lies in selecting the most appropriate and effective risk mitigation strategy within the constraints of IBM TRIRIGA capabilities and the applicable regulatory framework for real estate management. The decision requires a thorough understanding of risk assessment principles, the specific functionalities of TRIRIGA, and the potential consequences of both under-mitigation and over-mitigation. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a comprehensive risk mitigation plan that leverages TRIRIGA workflow and reporting capabilities is the best professional practice. This approach directly addresses the identified risk by defining specific actions, assigning responsibilities, and establishing timelines for resolution. TRIRIGA ability to track these actions, monitor progress, and generate reports ensures accountability and provides auditable evidence of risk management activities. This aligns with general principles of good corporate governance and regulatory expectations for proactive risk management, ensuring that identified risks are not merely acknowledged but actively managed to minimize potential negative impacts. Incorrect approaches analysis. Ignoring the identified risk and relying solely on existing operational procedures is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to comply with the implicit or explicit requirements to manage identified risks. It exposes the organization to potential financial losses, reputational damage, and non-compliance penalties. Documenting the risk without implementing any mitigation actions is also professionally unacceptable. While documentation is a part of risk management, it is insufficient on its own. This approach fails to fulfill the duty of care to actively manage and reduce identified risks, leading to similar consequences as ignoring the risk. It represents a superficial approach to risk management, which regulators would likely deem inadequate. Assigning the risk mitigation responsibility to a single individual without providing them with the necessary tools, authority, or support within TRIRIGA is also a flawed approach. This can lead to the risk not being effectively addressed due to resource constraints or lack of system integration. It can also create an ethical issue if the individual is set up for failure, and it fails to leverage the collaborative and systematic capabilities of TRIRIGA for robust risk management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach risk assessment by first identifying and quantifying the risk. Subsequently, they must evaluate potential mitigation strategies, considering their effectiveness, cost, and feasibility within the existing system, TRIRIGA. The decision-making process should prioritize strategies that are actionable, measurable, and auditable, ensuring alignment with regulatory expectations and best practices in corporate governance. This involves a systematic evaluation of each potential mitigation, considering its impact on operational efficiency, financial performance, and compliance. The chosen strategy should be integrated into TRIRIGA workflows to ensure ongoing monitoring and management. Question 2. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive approach to risk assessment within the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3. Application to ensure the long-term viability and security of an organization's real estate portfolio. Which of the following best describes the most effective risk assessment strategy for a real estate manager? Option A. Prioritizing risk assessment efforts on immediate operational cost-saving opportunities, assuming that future risks are less critical than current financial performance. Option B. Proactively identifying potential risks, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies to address the most significant threats to the real estate portfolio. Option C. Focusing primarily on identifying and documenting all potential risks, regardless of their perceived likelihood or potential impact, to create an exhaustive risk register. Option D. Delegating the entire risk assessment process to external consultants without establishing internal oversight or understanding the specific risks relevant to the organization's real estate holdings. The correct answer is B. Proactively identifying potential risks, analyzing their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies to address the most significant threats to the real estate portfolio. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a real estate manager to balance the immediate need for operational efficiency with the long-term implications of potential risks. The IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 application is designed to manage real estate portfolios, and its effective use hinges on a thorough understanding of risk assessment principles. The challenge lies in identifying and prioritizing risks that could impact the organization's financial health, operational continuity, and compliance obligations, all within the context of the specific regulatory framework governing real estate management in the relevant jurisdiction, which for this exam is assumed to be U.S. federal and state regulations pertaining to real estate and corporate governance. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it involves a systematic and proactive identification of potential risks, followed by an evaluation of their likelihood and impact. This aligns with the principles of prudent financial management and corporate responsibility, which are implicitly or explicitly mandated by U.S. regulations such as Sarbanes-Oxley, SOX, for publicly traded companies, and general principles of fiduciary duty for all corporate officers. A comprehensive risk assessment ensures that potential threats to the real estate portfolio, such as lease expirations with unfavorable market conditions, environmental liabilities, or changes in zoning laws, are identified early. This allows for the development of mitigation strategies, thereby protecting the organization's assets and reputation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost savings without considering potential future liabilities would be professionally unacceptable. For example, neglecting to assess the environmental condition of a property before acquisition or renewal could lead to significant remediation costs and legal penalties, violating environmental regulations like the Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, CERCLA. Another incorrect approach might be to ignore the potential impact of market volatility on lease renewals, which could result in substantial revenue shortfalls or increased operating expenses, failing to uphold the duty of care expected of a real estate manager. A third incorrect approach could be to overlook the compliance aspects of lease agreements, such as ADA accessibility requirements or local building codes, potentially leading to fines and operational disruptions, and contravening local and federal building and accessibility laws. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured risk management framework. This includes 1. Risk identification, brainstorming and documenting all potential risks associated with the real estate portfolio. 2. Risk analysis, assessing the probability of each risk occurring and its potential impact, financial, operational, reputational, legal. 3. Risk evaluation, prioritizing risks based on their severity. 4. Risk treatment, developing strategies to mitigate, transfer, avoid, or accept each prioritized risk. 5. Risk monitoring and review, continuously tracking identified risks and reassessing the risk landscape. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements. Question 3. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent pattern of identifying minor lease clause deviations across a broad portfolio of commercial properties. Given the limited resources available for lease administration, which of the following approaches best balances proactive compliance management with operational efficiency? Option A. Rely solely on tenant-initiated reports of lease violations to trigger investigations and corrective actions. Option B. Utilize random sampling of lease clauses across the portfolio for review each month, irrespective of lease complexity or financial significance. Option C. Implement a risk-based monitoring strategy that prioritizes detailed review of leases with complex terms, significant financial implications, or a history of non-compliance, while conducting periodic high-level reviews of other leases. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive, line-by-line audit of every lease agreement on a quarterly basis to ensure absolute adherence to all clauses. The correct answer is C. Implement a risk-based monitoring strategy that prioritizes detailed review of leases with complex terms, significant financial implications, or a history of non-compliance, while conducting periodic high-level reviews of other leases. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in real estate management, balancing proactive risk mitigation with the efficient use of resources. The core difficulty lies in determining the appropriate level of detail and frequency for monitoring lease compliance without incurring excessive costs or missing critical issues. Professionals must exercise judgment to identify potential risks and ensure adherence to contractual obligations and relevant regulations, which in this case are governed by U.S. real estate law and best practices for lease administration. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a risk-based methodology by focusing monitoring efforts on leases with higher potential for noncompliance, e.g., those with complex clauses, significant financial implications, or recent amendments. It ensures that limited resources are allocated effectively. This aligns with the professional duty to manage assets prudently and to safeguard the organization's interests by proactively identifying and addressing potential breaches of lease agreements, thereby avoiding costly disputes or financial penalties. This approach is also implicitly supported by general principles of good corporate governance and fiduciary responsibility. An incorrect approach that relies solely on random sampling without considering lease characteristics fails to adequately identify high-risk areas. This can lead to missed compliance issues, potentially resulting in financial losses or legal challenges, which is a failure in due diligence. Another incorrect approach that involves exhaustive, detailed review of every lease at frequent intervals is inefficient and cost-prohibitive, diverting resources from other critical asset management functions. This demonstrates poor resource management and a lack of strategic prioritization. An approach that only addresses issues when they are reported by tenants or other parties is reactive rather than proactive, exposing the organization to unnecessary risks and potentially violating lease terms that require ongoing monitoring by the landlord. This reactive stance is a significant professional failing in asset management. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic evaluation of risk factors associated with each lease. This involves considering lease complexity, financial exposure, tenant history, and the potential impact of non-compliance. A tiered monitoring strategy, where high-risk leases receive more frequent and detailed scrutiny, is generally the most effective and efficient method. This allows for the allocation of resources where they are most needed, ensuring compliance and protecting the organization's assets. Question 4. Process analysis reveals that the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 application requires a critical upgrade to address security vulnerabilities and introduce new functionalities. The real estate management team is concerned about potential disruption to daily operations, including lease administration, financial reporting, and facilities management. What is the most prudent approach to manage this upgrade process to ensure minimal business impact and maintain data integrity? Option A. Postpone the upgrade indefinitely until a period of exceptionally low business activity is identified to avoid any potential disruption. Option B. Implement the upgrade directly into the production environment and address any issues as they arise, prioritizing speed of deployment over extensive pre-testing. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive pilot testing phase in a staging environment that mirrors the production setup, followed by a phased rollout to different user groups with a well-defined rollback strategy in place. Option D. Immediately deploy the upgrade to the production environment during a scheduled maintenance window to minimize downtime, assuming the vendor's testing is sufficient. Correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive pilot testing phase in a staging environment that mirrors the production setup, followed by a phased rollout to different user groups with a well-defined rollback strategy in place. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in real estate management where a critical system update, IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3, is due. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for system functionality and data integrity with the potential disruption and risks associated with a major upgrade. The pressure to maintain operational continuity, meet reporting deadlines, and avoid unforeseen issues during the upgrade process requires careful planning and risk assessment. The consultant must navigate stakeholder expectations, resource constraints, and the inherent uncertainties of system implementations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased, risk-mitigated rollout strategy. This involves thorough pre-implementation testing in a non-production environment, comprehensive user training, and a detailed rollback plan. This aligns with best practices in IT project management and regulatory compliance by minimizing the risk of data loss or corruption, ensuring business continuity, and allowing for early detection and resolution of issues. By validating the upgrade's impact on critical business processes and user workflows before full deployment, the organization upholds its responsibility to maintain accurate financial and operational records, which is often a regulatory requirement for real estate portfolios. This proactive approach demonstrates due diligence and a commitment to system stability and user adoption. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the upgrade directly into the production environment without prior testing or a rollback plan is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach disregards the potential for catastrophic data loss or system downtime, which could lead to non-compliance with financial reporting standards and contractual obligations. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to protect the organization's assets and data. Delaying the upgrade indefinitely due to fear of disruption, without a structured plan to address the risks, also constitutes a failure. This inaction can lead to the system becoming outdated, unsupported, and potentially vulnerable to security threats. It also prevents the organization from leveraging new functionalities that might improve efficiency and compliance, thereby failing to act in the best interest of the business and its stakeholders. Focusing solely on technical implementation without considering user impact and training is another failure. This can lead to poor user adoption, increased errors, and a failure to realize the full benefits of the upgrade, ultimately undermining the project's objectives and potentially impacting compliance due to incorrect data entry or process execution. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, risk-based approach to system upgrades. This involves 1. Comprehensive assessment of the upgrade's impact on existing processes and data. 2. Development of a detailed project plan including testing, training, and communication strategies. 3. Prioritization of testing in a dedicated environment to identify and resolve issues before production deployment. 4. Establishment of clear rollback procedures in case of unforeseen problems. 5. Phased rollout where feasible to minimize disruption. 6. Continuous monitoring and post-implementation support. This systematic process ensures that the upgrade is managed effectively, minimizing risks and maximizing the benefits while adhering to professional standards and regulatory expectations. Question 5. Quality control measures reveal that a significant number of lease abstracts in IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 have not been updated to reflect recent lease amendments and renewals. The team is under pressure to close the quarter and has been verbally instructed by a senior manager to proceed with updating the abstract data based on their recollection of the changes, without cross-referencing the executed amendment documents, which approach best upholds professional practice and regulatory compliance. Option A. Update only the most critical lease abstracts based on verbal confirmation, leaving less critical ones for later review. Option B. Delay updating the lease abstracts until after the quarterly closing, and then attempt to reconstruct the changes from memory and informal notes. Option C. Update the lease abstracts in TRIRIGA by referencing the executed lease amendment and renewal documents, ensuring all changes are accurately reflected and documented with a clear audit trail. Option D. Proceed with updating the lease abstracts based on verbal instructions from the senior manager, prioritizing speed to meet the quarterly closing deadline. The correct answer is C. Update the lease abstracts in TRIRIGA by referencing the executed lease amendment and renewal documents, ensuring all changes are accurately reflected and documented with a clear audit trail. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in real estate management, balancing the need for efficient data management with the imperative of regulatory compliance and data integrity. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the TRIRIGA system accurately reflects the current state of leased properties, while adhering to the specific reporting and record-keeping requirements mandated by relevant real estate regulations. A failure to do so can lead to compliance breaches, financial penalties, and reputational damage. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process for updating lease data within TRIRIGA, directly linking the system's information to the executed lease agreements and any subsequent amendments. This ensures that the system of record is a true and accurate reflection of contractual obligations and property status. This aligns with best practices for data governance and regulatory compliance, emphasizing accuracy, completeness, and auditability. By validating changes against source documents and maintaining a clear audit trail, the organization demonstrates due diligence and adherence to principles of sound financial and property management. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal validation and relies solely on verbal confirmation or incomplete documentation introduces significant risks. This failure to link system updates to verifiable source documents is a direct contravention of principles of data integrity and auditability, which are often implicitly or explicitly required by real estate regulations concerning financial reporting and property management. Such an approach creates a disconnect between the system and the actual contractual reality, making it impossible to reliably demonstrate compliance during an audit. It also increases the likelihood of errors and misrepresentations, which can have serious financial and legal consequences. Another incorrect approach, such as delaying updates until a significant backlog accumulates, compromises the real-time accuracy of the data. This delay can lead to decisions being made based on outdated information, and it hinders the ability to respond promptly to regulatory inquiries or internal audits, thereby failing to meet the expectation of maintaining current and accurate records. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes data accuracy, regulatory adherence, and robust internal controls. This involves establishing clear procedures for data entry and updates, mandating the use of verifiable source documents for all changes, and implementing regular data validation checks. When faced with discrepancies or incomplete information, the professional approach is to pause, investigate, and resolve the issue by referencing the original source documents or seeking clarification from relevant parties before proceeding with system updates. This methodical approach ensures that TRIRIGA remains a reliable tool for both operational management and regulatory compliance. Question 6. The efficiency study reveals that the current lease abstraction process within IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 is significantly slower than industry benchmarks, impacting the timely generation of critical financial reports. Considering the need for both speed and accuracy, which of the following strategies best addresses this challenge while adhering to professional best practices for real estate data management? Option A. Implement a phased rollout of advanced lease abstraction automation tools, incorporating robust data validation checks and comprehensive user training programs. Option B. Immediately deploy a comprehensive, fully automated lease abstraction solution across all lease types without prior pilot testing or user familiarization. Option C. Introduce automated lease abstraction tools with minimal quality assurance measures, assuming the technology will inherently provide accurate data. Option D. Continue with the existing manual lease abstraction process, focusing on minor workflow adjustments to improve efficiency without introducing new technology. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased rollout of advanced lease abstraction automation tools, incorporating robust data validation checks and comprehensive user training programs. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals that the current lease abstraction process within IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 is taking significantly longer than industry benchmarks, impacting the speed of critical financial reporting and strategic decision-making. This scenario is professionally challenging because it directly affects the organization's ability to leverage its real estate portfolio effectively and efficiently. The consultant must balance the need for speed with the imperative of accuracy and compliance, ensuring that any proposed solution adheres to best practices and relevant regulatory frameworks without introducing new risks. The correct approach, which involves a phased implementation of automated lease abstraction tools with rigorous quality assurance checks and targeted user training, represents best professional practice. This method acknowledges the complexity of lease data and the potential for errors in automation. By implementing in phases, the consultant can monitor performance, gather user feedback, and make necessary adjustments, minimizing disruption. Rigorous quality assurance ensures that the automated data is accurate and reliable, which is crucial for financial reporting and compliance. Targeted training empowers users to effectively utilize the new tools and understand their limitations, fostering adoption and reducing reliance on manual overrides. This approach aligns with professional ethics by prioritizing accuracy, efficiency, and user competency, ultimately serving the client's best interests. An incorrect approach would be to immediately deploy a fully automated lease abstraction solution across all lease types without any pilot testing or user training. This would be professionally unacceptable due to the high risk of widespread data inaccuracies, leading to flawed financial reporting and potential regulatory noncompliance. Such a failure could result in significant financial penalties and reputational damage. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on manual abstraction methods, even with the efficiency study highlighting delays. This ignores the potential for technological solutions to improve performance and would be professionally negligent, as it fails to explore and implement industry-standard best practices for efficiency and accuracy. A third incorrect approach would be to implement automation without any form of quality control or validation. This is ethically unsound, as it knowingly risks the integrity of critical financial data, potentially leading to misstatements and breaches of fiduciary duty. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the current process, identification of specific pain points and their root causes, and exploration of available technological solutions and best practices. It requires a risk-based approach, prioritizing solutions that offer the greatest potential for improvement while mitigating risks of error and noncompliance. Engaging stakeholders, understanding their needs and concerns, and planning for change management, including training and support, are also critical components of effective professional practice. Question 7. The assessment process reveals discrepancies between the lease payment data provided by a property vendor and the figures recorded in the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager system, impacting the accuracy of financial reporting for a key lease. The vendor insists their figures are correct, citing their long-standing relationship with the property. The client's internal accounting department is seeking a definitive resolution to ensure accurate financial statements. What is the most appropriate course of action for the TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager consultant? Option A. Advise the client's internal accounting department to make the final decision on which figures to use, as they are ultimately responsible for financial statements, and refrain from providing a specific recommendation. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the lease agreement clauses pertaining to rent, escalations, and any other financial obligations, cross-referencing with historical payment records and vendor invoices to identify the source of the discrepancy. Collaborate with the client's accounting team and the vendor to reconcile any identified differences and ensure accurate data entry into TRIRIGA. Option C. Immediately update the TRIRIGA system to reflect the vendor's provided figures, assuming their long-term familiarity with the property ensures accuracy, and inform the client's accounting department of the change. Option D. Implement the figures that appear most consistent with the client's general budgeting patterns, without a detailed review of the specific lease terms or vendor documentation, to expedite the resolution. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of the lease agreement clauses pertaining to rent, escalations, and any other financial obligations, cross-referencing with historical payment records and vendor invoices to identify the source of the discrepancy. Collaborate with the client's accounting team and the vendor to reconcile any identified differences and ensure accurate data entry into TRIRIGA. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a common challenge in real estate management, balancing the need for accurate financial reporting with the practicalities of lease administration and the potential for disputes. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager consultant to interpret complex lease clauses, understand their financial implications, and ensure compliance with accounting standards, all while managing client expectations and potential vendor disagreements. The consultant must navigate ambiguity in lease language and apply best practices for data integrity and financial reconciliation. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, documented review of lease agreements and supporting documentation. This ensures that all financial data entered into TRIRIGA is accurate, verifiable, and compliant with relevant accounting principles. By engaging with both the client's accounting team and the vendor, the consultant fosters transparency and collaboration, mitigating the risk of errors and disputes. This methodical approach aligns with the professional obligation to provide reliable and accurate information, which is fundamental to effective real estate portfolio management and financial stewardship. An incorrect approach that involves directly implementing the vendor's provided figures without independent verification fails to uphold professional diligence. This bypasses the critical step of ensuring data accuracy and could lead to misstated financial reports, impacting budgeting, forecasting, and compliance. Ethically, it represents a failure to exercise due care and professional skepticism. Another incorrect approach, which is to defer the decision solely to the client's internal accounting department without providing a consultant's expert analysis, abdicates responsibility. While client input is crucial, the consultant's role is to provide expertise in applying TRIRIGA and best practices for real estate data management. This approach risks overlooking nuances in the lease terms or TRIRIGA capabilities that the accounting team might not be aware of, potentially leading to suboptimal data entry or incorrect financial interpretations. It also fails to leverage the consultant's specialized knowledge. A third incorrect approach, which is to assume the vendor's interpretation is correct due to their familiarity with the property, is a significant professional failing. Vendor familiarity does not equate to contractual accuracy or adherence to accounting standards. This assumption can lead to the perpetuation of errors and misrepresentations, undermining the integrity of the real estate management system and the financial data it holds. It demonstrates a lack of critical evaluation and reliance on potentially biased information. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Understand the objective. Clearly define what needs to be achieved, e.g., accurate lease data entry, financial reconciliation. 2. Gather all relevant information. Collect lease agreements, vendor invoices, payment histories, and any other supporting documentation. 3. Analyze the information critically. Review lease clauses for financial obligations, payment terms, and any potential ambiguities. Cross-reference with vendor data and historical records. 4. Consult with stakeholders. Engage with the client's accounting and legal teams as well as relevant vendors to clarify any discrepancies or interpretations. 5. Document all findings and decisions. Maintain a clear record of the review process, any assumptions made, and the rationale behind the final data entry or recommendation. 6. Implement and verify. Ensure that the chosen approach is accurately reflected in TRIRIGA and establish a process for ongoing verification. Question 8. Benchmark analysis indicates that a key business unit is requesting to bypass standard lease abstracting workflows in IBM TRIRIGA, citing urgent operational needs to expedite the entry of new lease data. They propose a manual, ad hoc data entry method outside of the established best practice configuration. What is the most professionally sound approach to address this request? Option A. Conduct a detailed review of the business unit's specific pain points and the perceived inefficiencies of the current workflow, exploring potential configuration adjustments or user training to address their needs within the framework of TRIRIGA best practices. Option B. Immediately approve the business unit's request to bypass standard workflows to ensure their operational needs are met without delay, documenting the exception for future reference. Option C. Advise the business unit that deviations from established best practices are not permitted and instruct them to adhere to the existing workflow, regardless of their perceived urgency. Option D. Develop a separate, custom data entry tool for this business unit that mirrors the requested ad hoc method, ensuring their immediate needs are met without impacting the core TRIRIGA system. The correct answer is A. Conduct a detailed review of the business unit's specific pain points and the perceived inefficiencies of the current workflow, exploring potential configuration adjustments or user training to address their needs within the framework of TRIRIGA best practices. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in real estate management, where a business unit is requesting a deviation from established best practices for lease administration due to perceived immediate operational needs. The challenge lies in balancing the desire for agility and responsiveness with the need for consistent, compliant, and efficient lease management processes. Ignoring established best practices, even for seemingly valid reasons, can lead to increased risk, potential noncompliance with internal policies and external regulations, if applicable, though this exam focuses on application best practices and a degradation of data integrity within IBM TRIRIGA. The consultant must critically evaluate the request, understand the underlying drivers, and propose a solution that upholds best practices while addressing the business unit's concerns. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough investigation into the root cause of the business unit's request. This includes understanding their specific pain points, the perceived inefficiencies of the current process, and the actual impact of adhering to best practices. By engaging in a collaborative dialogue, the consultant can identify if the issue stems from a misunderstanding of the system's capabilities, a need for process refinement, or a genuine gap that requires a configuration adjustment. The best practice is to leverage the existing functionalities of IBM TRIRIGA to their fullest extent, ensuring data consistency, auditability, and adherence to established workflows. If a deviation is truly necessary, it should be a carefully considered, documented exception that is implemented with appropriate controls and oversight, rather than a blanket disregard for established procedures. This approach prioritizes data integrity, system maintainability, and long-term operational efficiency, aligning with the principles of robust real estate portfolio management. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately grant the exception without a detailed investigation. This fails to uphold professional responsibility by potentially introducing systemic risks and undermining the established best practices that are designed to ensure compliance and efficiency. It signals a lack of due diligence and can set a precedent for future noncompliance. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the business unit's concerns outright without understanding their operational context. This demonstrates poor stakeholder management and a failure to recognize that system processes should ideally support business needs. While best practices are crucial, a rigid adherence without considering operational realities can lead to workarounds outside the system, compromising data integrity and audit trails. A third incorrect approach is to implement a custom solution that bypasses core TRIRIGA functionalities without a comprehensive impact assessment. This can lead to increased maintenance overhead, potential conflicts with future system upgrades, and a fragmented data landscape, ultimately deviating from the intended benefits of a standardized system. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such requests by first seeking to understand the why behind the deviation request. This involves active listening and probing questions to uncover the underlying business problem. The next step is to assess the request against established best practices and the system's intended use. If the request appears to be a symptom of a process issue or a misunderstanding, the professional should focus on educating the user and refining the existing process or configuration. If the request highlights a genuine limitation or a critical business need that cannot be met by current best practices, a formal change request process should be initiated. This process should involve a thorough impact analysis, risk assessment, and documented approval from relevant stakeholders, ensuring that any deviation is a deliberate and controlled decision, not an accidental oversight. The ultimate goal is to find solutions that are both operationally effective and maintain the integrity and efficiency of the IBM TRIRIGA platform. Question 9. Market research demonstrates that the commercial real estate sector is experiencing significant volatility due to evolving economic conditions and shifting tenant demands. As an IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager application consultant, you are tasked with developing a robust financial forecasting methodology for a portfolio of leased properties, which approach best aligns with professional best practices for providing reliable projections for strategic planning and investment decisions. Option A. Implement a simplified forecasting model that requires minimal data input and focuses on generating a single, straightforward projection, prioritizing speed and ease of use over detailed analysis. Option B. Rely solely on the average rental income and expense figures from the past 5 years, assuming these historical trends will continue without significant deviation. Option C. Focus exclusively on projecting future performance based on the most optimistic market forecasts and potential for significant rent increases, disregarding any potential negative market influences. Option D. Develop a forecasting model that incorporates historical performance data, current market trend analysis, expert market insights, and multiple scenario planning, e.g., best case, worst case, and most likely outcomes, to provide a range of potential financial results. The correct answer is D. Develop a forecasting model that incorporates historical performance data, current market trend analysis, expert market insights, and multiple scenario planning, e.g., best case, worst case, and most likely outcomes, to provide a range of potential financial results. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in real estate management, balancing the need for accurate financial forecasting with the inherent uncertainties of market fluctuations and lease negotiations. The professional challenge lies in selecting a forecasting methodology that is both robust enough to provide reliable projections for strategic decision-making and flexible enough to adapt to evolving market conditions, all while adhering to IBM TRIRIGA best practices and the implied regulatory compliance expected in financial reporting for real estate assets. The core of the challenge is to avoid overly optimistic or pessimistic projection that could lead to misallocation of resources or missed opportunities. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it leverages a data-driven, multifaceted methodology that acknowledges the complexities of real estate forecasting. By incorporating historical data, current market trends, and expert judgment, it provides a more balanced and realistic outlook. This aligns with the principles of prudent financial management and the expectation of providing accurate information for business planning and investment decisions. The use of scenario planning, a key component of this approach, directly addresses the inherent uncertainties and allows for contingency planning, which is a hallmark of professional diligence. An incorrect approach that relies solely on historical averages fails to account for current market dynamics or potential future shifts, leading to potentially inaccurate forecasts. This can result in misinformed strategic decisions, such as underestimating future rental income or overestimating operating expenses, which could have significant financial repercussions. From a regulatory perspective, providing forecasts that are not grounded in current realities could be seen as a failure of due diligence, potentially misleading stakeholders. Another incorrect approach that focuses exclusively on the most optimistic market projections ignores potential downside risks. This can lead to overcommitment of resources based on unrealistic revenue expectations and a lack of preparedness for market downturns. Such an approach could be viewed as overly speculative and lacking the professional objectivity required for sound financial management. An approach that prioritizes ease of implementation over accuracy, such as using a single, simplified projection model without validation, risks generating misleading data. This can undermine the credibility of the real estate management function and lead to poor strategic choices based on flawed information. Professionally, this demonstrates a lack of commitment to providing reliable financial insights. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the business objectives, the available data, and the limitations of any forecasting model. Professionals should always strive for a balanced perspective, considering both potential upside and downside scenarios. They should also be prepared to articulate the assumptions underpinning their forecasts and the potential impact of deviations from those assumptions. This involves a continuous cycle of data gathering, analysis, model refinement, and stakeholder communication, ensuring that forecasts remain relevant and actionable. Question 10. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of noncompliance with lease termination notice clauses due to the current TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 configuration not directly supporting automated tracking of these critical dates. What is the most professionally sound approach to address this implementation challenge? Option A. Investigate and implement a configuration change or a controlled, documented customization within TRIRIGA to manage lease termination notices, adhering to IBM's recommended development practices. Option B. Proceed with the current TRIRIGA configuration and address lease termination notice tracking as a post-implementation enhancement request, deferring the immediate risk. Option C. Develop a custom script to directly update the database, bypassing the TRIRIGA application layer to ensure lease termination notices are recorded. Option D. Implement a manual process outside of TRIRIGA for tracking lease termination notices, relying on spreadsheets and separate documentation. The correct answer is A. Investigate and implement a configuration change or a controlled, documented customization within TRIRIGA to manage lease termination notices, adhering to IBM's recommended development practices. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge or a critical business requirement, the accurate tracking of lease termination notices, conflicts with the default functionality of IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager. The challenge lies in balancing the need for immediate operational efficiency and compliance with contractual obligations against the potential for technical debt and future maintenance issues if a workaround is implemented without proper consideration. The pressure to deliver a quick solution for a high-priority business need can lead to rushed decisions that overlook long-term implications. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough analysis of the business requirement and an investigation into whether the existing TRIRIGA functionality, perhaps through configuration or minor customization, can meet the need. If a direct configuration is not possible, the next best step is to explore a controlled, well-documented customization that adheres to TRIRIGA best practices for development and integration. This approach ensures that the solution is maintainable, scalable, and minimizes the risk of future conflicts during upgrades or patches. It prioritizes a robust and sustainable solution over a quick, potentially fragile fix. This aligns with professional IT implementation standards that emphasize quality, maintainability, and adherence to vendor-supported methodologies. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a custom script that directly manipulates the database bypasses the TRIRIGA application layer. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure because it creates an unsupported state. It directly violates the principle of maintaining system integrity and auditability. Such an approach makes it impossible to rely on TRIRIGA built-in reporting and auditing capabilities for lease termination notices, potentially leading to non-compliance with lease agreements and regulatory reporting requirements. Furthermore, it introduces a high risk of data corruption and system instability, which could have severe financial and legal repercussions for the organization. Developing a workaround that involves manual data entry outside of TRIRIGA, even if it captures the required information, is also professionally unacceptable. This approach introduces significant risk of human error, data inconsistency, and a lack of a single source of truth. It undermines the purpose of implementing a system like TRIRIGA, which is to centralize and automate real estate management processes. From a regulatory perspective, it creates an audit trail that is fragmented and difficult to verify, potentially leading to non-compliance with internal controls and external regulations. Ignoring the requirement and proceeding with the implementation without addressing the lease termination notice tracking is a failure to meet business needs and a potential breach of contractual obligations. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the impact on the business operations and legal standing of the organization. It is ethically questionable as it fails to deliver on the promised functionality and could expose the organization to risks it was unaware of. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach implementation challenges by first understanding the core business requirement and its impact. They should then exhaust all configuration options within the application before considering customization. If customization is necessary, it must be performed following vendor best practices and with thorough documentation. A structured approach involving business analysts, technical consultants, and stakeholders is crucial to ensure that solutions are not only functional but also sustainable, compliant, and aligned with the organization's long-term IT strategy. The decision-making process should prioritize system integrity, auditability, and adherence to regulatory and contractual obligations. Question 11. Stakeholder feedback indicates that a specific department, which was not a primary focus during the initial IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3 implementation planning, has identified a critical reporting gap that they believe can be addressed by a minor customization to the system. They are requesting immediate implementation of this customization to meet an upcoming regulatory deadline. What is the most appropriate course of action for the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10? 3 Application Consultant. Option A. Initiate the formal change control process to document, assess the impact of, and seek approval for the requested customization, while also communicating the process and potential timeline implications to the requesting department. Option B. Advise the stakeholder that the current project scope does not include this customization and that any future enhancements would need to be considered in a separate project phase or enhancement request. Option C. Directly implement the customization to satisfy the stakeholder's immediate need, and then retroactively document the change and its justification for the project records. Option D. Immediately proceed with the customization as requested, given the urgency of the regulatory deadline, and inform the project manager of the change after it has been implemented. The correct answer is A. Initiate the formal change control process to document, assess the impact of, and seek approval for the requested customization, while also communicating the process and potential timeline implications to the requesting department. Explanation. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where differing stakeholder priorities can lead to scope creep and potential project delays if not managed effectively. The core challenge lies in balancing the immediate perceived needs of one department with the broader strategic objectives and established project scope. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed changes are evaluated against the project's original goals, budget, and timeline, while also maintaining positive stakeholder relationships. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it adheres to established project management methodologies and the principles of good governance within a corporate environment. It prioritizes a structured change control process, ensuring that all proposed modifications are formally documented, assessed for impact, and approved by the appropriate governance bodies. This aligns with the need for accountability and transparency in IT system implementations, preventing ad hoc decisions that could compromise the project's integrity or lead to inefficient resource allocation. It also respects the established scope and objectives of the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3. Implementation, ensuring that the system delivers its intended value. An incorrect approach that bypasses formal change control processes and directly implements a requested feature without proper evaluation is professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant regulatory and ethical lapse. It undermines the project's governance framework, potentially leading to unauthorized expenditure and deviation from the approved project plan. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a disregard for the established project management protocols, which are designed to protect the organization's interests. Furthermore, it can create a precedent for future unmanaged changes, leading to a system that is difficult to maintain and support. Another incorrect approach, which is to dismiss the stakeholder's request outright without proper consideration, is also professionally flawed. While it avoids scope creep, it fails to acknowledge the importance of stakeholder buy-in and can damage relationships, potentially leading to resistance or dissatisfaction later in the project or with the implemented solution. This approach lacks the collaborative spirit necessary for successful system adoption and can be perceived as unresponsive to business needs, even if those needs are not aligned with the current project scope. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve 1. Active listening to understand the stakeholder's request and the underlying business need. 2. Evaluating the request against the current project scope, objectives, and constraints. 3. If the request is outside the current scope, initiating the formal change control process. 4. Clearly communicating the process and potential impacts, time, cost, resources to the stakeholder. 5. Seeking approval from the project steering committee or relevant governance body before proceeding with any out-of-scope changes. This structured approach ensures that decisions are informed, documented, and aligned with organizational strategy and project goals. Question 12. Cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 will yield significant long-term operational efficiencies. However, the client's internal real estate team has expressed apprehension about the disruption to their established, albeit manual, workflows and the learning curve associated with a new system. Considering these factors and the need for a robust and accurate system, which implementation approach best balances risk mitigation, user adoption, and the realization of benefits? Option A. Prioritize immediate cost savings by migrating existing data directly into IBM TRIRIGA without extensive validation, focusing on core functionality first. Option B. Focus exclusively on the technical configuration of IBM TRIRIGA, assuming users will adapt to the system through self-learning and on-demand support. Option C. Implement the full IBM TRIRIGA system across all departments simultaneously, providing comprehensive training materials post-go live. Option D. Conduct a pilot implementation of IBM TRIRIGA in a single department or for a specific set of functionalities, gathering feedback and refining the process before a broader rollout. The correct answer is C. Implement the full IBM TRIRIGA system across all departments simultaneously, providing comprehensive training materials post-go live. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a client's existing, albeit inefficient, manual processes are deeply ingrained. Challenge lies in balancing the immediate disruption and perceived cost of adopting a new system, IBM TRIRIGA, against the long-term benefits of automation and improved data integrity. Resistance to change, fear of job displacement, and a lack of understanding of the new system's capabilities can create significant friction. The consultant must navigate these human factors while ensuring the implementation aligns with best practices and regulatory compliance. Even if not explicitly stated in the prompt, the underlying principle of data accuracy and auditability is a constant in real estate management. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased rollout, starting with a pilot program. This strategy is best professional practice because it allows for controlled testing of the IBM TRIRIGA system in a live, but limited, environment. It provides an opportunity to identify and rectify unforeseen issues, gather user feedback, and demonstrate tangible benefits to a smaller group before a full-scale deployment. This iterative process minimizes risk, builds user confidence, and allows for adjustments to training and support based on real-world experience. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach promotes data integrity by allowing for validation of system outputs against known data before widespread adoption, thereby reducing the risk of systemic errors that could have compliance implications. It also demonstrates a commitment to user adoption and minimizes disruption, which is ethically sound. Incorrect approach is analysis. A Big Bang approach, where the entire system is implemented at once, is professionally unacceptable due to the high risk of widespread disruption, data corruption, and user overwhelm. This can lead to significant financial losses and reputational damage. Ethically, it disregards the impact on end users and the potential for critical business functions to fail. Focusing solely on technical configuration, without adequate user training and change management, is also professionally flawed. This approach neglects the human element of system adoption, leading to low user proficiency, workarounds, and ultimately, underutilization of the system's capabilities. This can result in inaccurate data entry and reporting, which could have regulatory implications if financial or compliance reporting is affected. Ethically, it fails to equip users with the necessary skills to perform their jobs effectively with the new tool. Prioritizing immediate cost savings by skipping essential data migration validation steps is a critical ethical and professional failure. While cost-benefit analysis is important, compromising data integrity for short-term financial gains is unacceptable. Inaccurate data can lead to incorrect financial reporting, lease administration errors, and non-compliance with various real estate regulations, potentially resulting in fines and legal repercussions. This approach demonstrates a disregard for accuracy and due diligence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach implementation challenges by first conducting a thorough assessment of the client's current state, including their processes, technology, and organizational culture. This should be followed by a clear definition of project scope, objectives, and success criteria, with a strong emphasis on user adoption and data integrity. A risk assessment should identify potential challenges and mitigation strategies, such as phased rollouts and comprehensive training programs, should be developed. Continuous communication and stakeholder engagement are crucial throughout the project lifecycle. Decision-making should be guided by a commitment to delivering value, ensuring data accuracy, and adhering to ethical principles that prioritize client success and minimize risk. Question 13. Cost-benefit analysis shows a significant projected ROI for upgrading the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 system to a newer version, primarily due to reduced licensing fees and enhanced reporting capabilities. However, the proposed upgrade requires a substantial shift in user workflows and necessitates extensive retraining for the real estate management team. Which approach to assessing the impact of this upgrade best aligns with professional best practices and regulatory considerations for system implementation? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that quantifies potential operational disruptions, estimates the resources required for user training and change management, and identifies integration challenges with existing systems, in addition to the financial benefits. Option B. Focus the impact assessment solely on the technical aspects of the upgrade and the new reporting features, as these are the primary drivers of the projected ROI, and assume operational and user impacts will be minor. Option C. Prioritize the upgrade based on the projected cost savings, deferring a detailed impact assessment until after the system has been implemented to avoid delaying the realization of financial benefits. Option D. Proceed with the upgrade based on the strong financial ROI, assuming that users will adapt to new workflows with minimal disruption, and that training can be addressed on an ad hoc basis after the system is live. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that quantifies potential operational disruptions, estimates the resources required for user training and change management, and identifies integration challenges with existing systems, in addition to the financial benefits. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate financial benefits of a proposed system upgrade against potential long-term operational disruptions and the need for comprehensive user training. The IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3 application consultant must ensure that any impact assessment is thorough and considers all facets of the business, not just the direct cost savings. The regulatory framework for this exam. C2010-506 IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3 application consultant implicitly emphasizes responsible system implementation and management, which includes minimizing negative impacts on business operations and ensuring compliance with internal policies and potentially external data privacy regulations if sensitive real estate data is involved. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a holistic understanding of the impact. A detailed impact assessment that includes user training needs, potential downtime, data migration complexities, and integration with other business systems ensures that the organization is fully prepared for the transition. This proactive approach mitigates risks, prevents unforeseen costs, and maximizes the likelihood of successful adoption and realization of the projected benefits. It aligns with professional ethics by advocating for informed decision-making and responsible resource allocation, ensuring that the organization's operational integrity is maintained. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the immediate cost savings, without adequately assessing the operational disruption and training requirements, would be professionally unacceptable. This failure represents a significant ethical lapse by potentially misleading stakeholders about the true cost and effort involved in the upgrade. It could lead to project delays, budget overruns, and user dissatisfaction, all of which undermine the credibility of the consultant and the project. Furthermore, neglecting user training can lead to improper system usage, data inaccuracies, and noncompliance with internal controls or external regulations, creating a direct regulatory or ethical failure. Another incorrect approach might be to defer the impact assessment to a later stage, which is a failure in professional due diligence. This delays the identification of critical risks and can lead to rushed, suboptimal solutions, increasing the likelihood of project failure and potential breaches of professional standards by not adhering to a structured and comprehensive project lifecycle. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the scope and objectives of the impact assessment. This involves identifying all stakeholders, understanding their concerns, and gathering input on potential impacts across different business units. The assessment should then systematically evaluate technical, operational, financial, and human resource implications. This structured approach allows for the identification of mitigation strategies and contingency plans, ensuring that all potential risks are addressed before implementation. Finally, the findings should be communicated transparently to all stakeholders, enabling informed decision-making and fostering trust. Question 14. Comparative studies suggest that implementing a new real estate management system often encounters resistance due to deeply entrenched manual processes. For a client using manual spreadsheets for lease abstraction and critical date tracking, what is the most effective strategy for implementing IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10? 3. To ensure successful adoption and data integrity. Option A. Replicate the client's existing manual spreadsheet processes directly within TRIRIGA without any re-engineering to minimize disruption. Option B. Mandate the immediate migration of all existing lease data and configure all advanced critical date workflows simultaneously to ensure a complete system rollout from day one. Option C. Implement a phased approach, beginning with the abstraction of all critical lease data and then introducing the critical date management functionality, coupled with comprehensive user training. Option D. Prioritize the rapid migration of all lease data, accepting incomplete or unverified data initially to meet aggressive project timelines. The correct answer is C. Implement a phased approach, beginning with the abstraction of all critical lease data and then introducing the critical date management functionality, coupled with comprehensive user training. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a client's existing, albeit inefficient, manual processes for lease abstraction and critical date tracking are deeply ingrained. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for system adoption and data integrity with the client's resistance to change and potential disruption to ongoing operations. Overly aggressive or dismissive approaches can lead to user alienation, data inaccuracies due to incomplete adoption, and ultimately, project failure. The professional challenge is to guide the client towards best practices within TRIRIGA while respecting their operational realities and ensuring a smooth transition. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach emphasizes a phased implementation strategy, starting with critical lease data abstraction and then layering in the critical date management functionality. This aligns with IBM TRIRIGA modular design and allows users to gain proficiency with core functionalities before introducing more complex workflows. This approach is professionally sound because it prioritizes data accuracy and user adoption by breaking down the implementation into manageable steps. It allows for iterative feedback and adjustments, minimizing risk and building user confidence. This aligns with general project management best practices and the principle of delivering value incrementally, which is implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks that encourage due diligence and accurate record-keeping in real estate management. Incorrect approaches analysis. An approach that mandates immediate, full data migration and complex workflow configuration without adequate user training or phased rollout is professionally unsound. Risks overwhelming users, leading to incomplete or inaccurate data entry and potential noncompliance with internal controls and external reporting requirements due to data integrity issues. This could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in system implementation. Another incorrect approach would be to solely rely on the client's existing, outdated manual processes and simply lift and shift them into TRIRIGA without any re-engineering or leveraging the system's capabilities. This fails to deliver the promised benefits of the TRIRIGA system, wastes the client's investment, and perpetuates inefficient practices. Ethically, this is a disservice to the client who invested in a solution for improvement. Finally, an approach that prioritizes speed over data quality by accepting incomplete or unverified lease data for initial migration is also professionally unacceptable. Inaccurate lease data can lead to financial misstatements, missed obligations, and legal liabilities, directly contravening the principles of accurate financial and operational reporting expected in real estate management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a consultative and iterative approach. This involves thoroughly understanding the client's current state, identifying key pain points, and collaboratively designing a phased implementation plan that aligns with TRIRIGA capabilities and the client's capacity for change. Prioritizing data integrity and user adoption through comprehensive training and support is paramount. Regular communication, risk assessment, and adjustment of the plan based on feedback are essential for successful project delivery and client satisfaction. Question 15. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a new reporting requirement for detailed lease abstract information, including specific clauses and renewal terms not directly captured in the standard lease record, is critical for strategic decision-making. The implementation team is considering several approaches to fulfill this requirement within IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3. Which approach best balances system integrity, maintainability, and the accurate representation of lease data? Option A. Build a custom integration to pull this abstract information from an external system that is currently managing it, assuming TRIRIGA cannot natively handle such details. Option B. Utilize TRIRIGA dedicated lease abstract and financial commitment modules to capture and manage this detailed information, ensuring it is linked directly to the relevant lease records. Option C. Develop a custom report that aggregates data from various disparate tables, stitching together information that is not natively linked in a structured manner. Option D. Create a new custom data object within TRIRIGA to store the abstract information and manually link it to the existing lease records. The correct answer is B. Utilize TRIRIGA dedicated lease abstract and financial commitment modules to capture and manage this detailed information, ensuring it is linked directly to the relevant lease records. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in TRIRIGA where a seemingly straightforward functional requirement clashes with the underlying data model and established best practices for lease administration. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate business need for a specific reporting output with the long-term integrity and maintainability of the TRIRIGA system. Misinterpreting the system's capabilities or forcing a workaround can lead to data inconsistencies, increased complexity, and difficulties in future upgrades or integrations. The professional challenge is to identify the most robust and sustainable solution, rather than the quickest fix. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves leveraging TRIRIGA built-in functionality for managing lease abstract data and its associated financial commitments. TRIRIGA is designed to capture detailed lease information, including payment schedules, escalations, and other financial terms, within dedicated modules. By utilizing these existing structures, consultants ensure data consistency, enable accurate reporting through standard TRIRIGA tools, and maintain compliance with real estate accounting standards. This approach aligns with the principle of using the system as intended, minimizing custom development, and ensuring future system maintainability. It avoids creating data silos or redundant information, which are common pitfalls in system implementations. Incorrect approaches analysis. Creating a custom data object to store the abstract information and then manually linking it to lease records is an incorrect approach. This introduces data redundancy and bypasses TRIRIGA's robust lease accounting engine. It creates a separate, unmanaged data source that is prone to inconsistencies with the primary lease data, leading to reporting errors and increased maintenance overhead. Ethically, it represents a failure to adhere to best practices for system utilization and could lead to misrepresentation of financial data if not meticulously managed, potentially violating accounting principles. Developing a custom report that aggregates data from various disparate tables without a clear, integrated data model is also an incorrect approach. While it might produce the desired output in the short term, it creates a brittle solution. Any changes to the underlying data structure in future TRIRIGA versions or patches could break the custom report, requiring constant rework. This approach lacks scalability and maintainability, and it fails to leverage the integrated nature of TRIRIGA, which is a core strength. It also risks generating reports that are not auditable or easily verifiable against the system's source data. Building a custom integration to pull data from an external system that already holds this abstract information, without first assessing if TRIRIGA can natively manage it, is another incorrect approach. This adds unnecessary complexity and cost to the implementation. It assumes the external system is the single source of truth without verifying TRIRIGA capabilities. If TRIRIGA can manage the data, an integration is redundant and introduces potential points of failure and data synchronization issues. This approach demonstrates a lack of thorough system analysis and a tendency towards over-engineering. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach implementation challenges by first thoroughly understanding the business requirement and then deeply analyzing TRIRIGA native capabilities to meet that requirement. This involves consulting the system's documentation, exploring existing modules, and understanding the data model. When a direct native solution isn't immediately apparent, the next step is to consider configuration options before resorting to custom development or integrations. A structured approach involving requirements gathering, system analysis, solution design, and rigorous testing is crucial. Professionals must prioritize solutions that enhance data integrity, maintainability, and scalability, aligning with the system's intended architecture and best practices. Question 16. To address the challenge of a client accustomed to a manual, albeit inefficient, lease abstraction process and their apprehension towards adopting IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10, 3. Which implementation strategy would best balance immediate value delivery with user adoption and long-term system success? Option A. Replicate the client's existing manual abstraction process precisely within TRIRIGA, including all its known inefficiencies, to minimize perceived change for the users. Option B. Mandate the immediate cessation of all existing manual abstraction methods and enforce a complete transition to TRIRIGA full feature set from day one, irrespective of user readiness. Option C. Implement core lease abstraction functionalities and critical data points first, demonstrating tangible benefits and allowing for user familiarity before introducing more advanced modules and complex workflows. Option D. Prioritize the implementation of advanced reporting and predictive analytics modules in TRIRIGA to showcase the system's potential, even if the underlying lease data abstraction is not yet fully optimized. The correct answer is C. Implement core lease abstraction functionalities and critical data points first, demonstrating tangible benefits and allowing for user familiarity before introducing more advanced modules and complex workflows. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge where a client's existing, albeit outdated, lease abstraction process is deeply ingrained in their operational workflow. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for a more efficient and compliant system, IBM TRIRIGA, with the client's resistance to change, stemming from familiarity and perceived disruption. The professional challenge is to guide the client towards adopting best practices and leveraging the full capabilities of TRIRIGA without alienating them or causing significant operational downtime. This requires a nuanced understanding of change management, stakeholder engagement, and the technical capabilities of the TRIRIGA platform in the context of real estate lease management. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach focuses on a phased implementation that prioritizes critical functionalities and demonstrates value early on. This aligns with best professional practice by minimizing disruption, allowing for user adoption and feedback, and building confidence in the new system. By starting with core lease abstraction and critical data points, the implementation team can quickly deliver tangible benefits, such as improved data accuracy and reporting capabilities. This iterative approach allows for continuous learning and adaptation, ensuring that subsequent phases are tailored to the client's evolving needs and comfort level. This strategy respects the client's existing investment in their current process, while systematically migrating them to a more robust and compliant solution, thereby mitigating risks associated with a Big Bang approach. Incorrect approaches analysis. Mandating a complete overhaul and immediate abandonment of the existing abstraction process without a clear transition plan is professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the client's operational realities and can lead to significant resistance, data integrity issues during migration, and a failure to achieve user adoption. It represents a failure to engage in effective change management and stakeholder communication, potentially violating ethical obligations to deliver a solution that is both effective and practical for the client. Attempting to replicate the exact manual abstraction process within TRIRIGA, including its known inefficiencies and potential for error, is also professionally unsound. This approach fails to leverage the core benefits of implementing a system like TRIRIGA, which is designed to automate, standardize, and improve such processes. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of the platform's capabilities and a disservice to the client by not guiding them towards a more optimal solution. Ethically, this would be a failure to provide expert advice and deliver a solution that genuinely enhances their real estate management. Focusing solely on advanced reporting and analytics features before establishing a solid foundation of accurate and complete abstracted lease data is premature and counterproductive. While these features are valuable, they are dependent on the quality of the underlying data. Implementing them without first ensuring the core abstraction process is robust and accurate will lead to unreliable insights and further erode client confidence in the system. This approach demonstrates a lack of strategic planning and a failure to prioritize implementation steps effectively, potentially leading to wasted resources and client dissatisfaction. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such implementation challenges by first conducting a thorough assessment of the client's current state, identifying pain points, and understanding their business objectives. This should be followed by a collaborative development of a phased implementation roadmap that prioritizes high-impact functionalities and allows for iterative feedback and adjustments. Effective communication and change management strategies are paramount throughout the project lifecycle. The decision-making process should be guided by the principle of delivering maximum value to the client in a sustainable and risk-mitigated manner, always adhering to ethical standards of competence and professional integrity. Question 17. Operational review demonstrates a minor, previously undocumented discrepancy in a lease agreement that is critical for an upcoming, time-sensitive acquisition. The acquisition team is pressuring for immediate closure, suggesting the discrepancy can be rectified post-acquisition. As the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager Application Consultant, what is the most professional and compliant course of action? Option A. Immediately halt the acquisition process until the lease agreement is fully compliant, regardless of the acquisition's urgency or potential business impact. Option B. Amend the lease agreement documentation within TRIRIGA to reflect a compliant status without disclosing the original discrepancy to relevant stakeholders. Option C. Document the discrepancy, assess its potential risk and impact, and propose a remediation plan to be executed concurrently with or immediately following the acquisition, ensuring all actions are recorded in TRIRIGA. Option D. Proceed with the acquisition as planned, relying on a verbal commitment from the acquisition team to address the discrepancy after the deal closes, and do not record the discrepancy in TRIRIGA. Correct answer is C. Document the discrepancy, assess its potential risk and impact, and propose a remediation plan to be executed concurrently with or immediately following the acquisition, ensuring all actions are recorded in TRIRIGA. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma where a real estate manager, using IBM TRIRIGA, is pressured to overlook a minor compliance issue to expedite a critical business transaction. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate business need with the long-term implications of noncompliance and the potential for setting a precedent for future shortcuts. The manager must navigate conflicting priorities and potential reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves documenting the identified compliance gap, assessing its materiality and potential risks, and proposing a remediation plan that aligns with regulatory requirements and internal policies. This upholds professional integrity, ensures adherence to the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10, 3 application consultant's responsibilities, and protects the organization from future penalties or legal repercussions. It demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and robust governance, which are paramount in real estate management. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed with the transaction without addressing the compliance gap, relying on a verbal assurance of future correction. This violates the principle of due diligence and could lead to regulatory sanctions, financial penalties, and damage to the organization's reputation. It bypasses established controls and creates a risk of noncompliance becoming systemic. Another incorrect approach is to halt the transaction indefinitely due to the minor issue, without exploring mitigation strategies. A caution is important. An overly rigid stance without considering business impact or proportionate risk management can be detrimental. It fails to demonstrate problem-solving skills and may unnecessarily delay critical business operations, potentially impacting stakeholder confidence. A third incorrect approach is to attempt to obscure or misrepresent the compliance gap in the documentation. This is a direct ethical and potentially legal violation. It undermines the integrity of the TRIRIGA system and the reporting processes, leading to severe consequences including disciplinary action, legal liability, and loss of professional licensure. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should employ a structured decision-making process. First, they must clearly identify and understand the compliance requirement and the nature of the deviation. Second, they should assess the materiality and potential impact of the deviation on the business and regulatory standing. Third, they should consult relevant internal policies, procedures, and, if necessary, legal counsel. Fourth, they should develop and propose a proportionate remediation plan. Finally, they must ensure all actions and decisions are thoroughly documented within the TRIRIGA system to maintain transparency and auditability. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and defensible. Question 18. The evaluation methodology shows that an IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager Application Consultant has been assigned to a project involving a significant client. During the initial discovery phase, the consultant realizes that a close personal friend is a key stakeholder in the client organization, holding a position that grants them considerable influence over real estate decisions. The consultant has not previously disclosed this personal relationship to their employer or the client. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the consultant? Option A. Inform the client of the relationship but continue to lead the project, assuring them that their professional integrity will not be compromised. Option B. Proceed with the project, confident in their ability to remain objective, and only disclose the relationship if it becomes apparent that it is impacting their professional judgment. Option C. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to both the client and their consulting firm, and request to be recused from any project activities that could be influenced by this relationship. Option D. Discreetly leverage the personal relationship to gain additional insights into the client's strategic objectives, which could potentially benefit the project's outcome. The correct answer is C. Immediately disclose the personal relationship to both the client and their consulting firm, and request to be recused from any project activities that could be influenced by this relationship. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation of an IBM TRIRIGA real estate manager application consultant to maintain data integrity and uphold client confidentiality. The consultant is privy to sensitive financial and strategic information about a client's real estate portfolio. The dilemma arises from a personal relationship that could be perceived as compromising the consultant's professional objectivity and potentially leading to the misuse of confidential information. The correct approach involves prioritizing professional ethics and client trust above personal relationships. This means clearly communicating the conflict of interest to the client and the consulting firm, and recusing oneself from any aspect of the project that could be influenced by the personal relationship. This upholds the principles of professional conduct, ensuring that client decisions are based on objective analysis and not influenced by personal connections. It aligns with the ethical guidelines that govern consultants, emphasizing transparency, integrity, and the protection of client interests. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with the project without disclosing the relationship, hoping to maintain objectivity. This is ethically unsound because it creates an undisclosed conflict of interest. Even if the consultant believes they can remain impartial, the appearance of impropriety can erode client trust and violate professional standards that mandate disclosure of potential conflicts. Another incorrect approach is to subtly steer recommendations to benefit the friend, even if not explicitly instructed. This is a direct breach of fiduciary duty and professional integrity, exploiting confidential information for personal gain, which is a severe ethical and potentially legal violation. Finally, attempting to downplay the significance of the relationship or the information shared would be a failure to acknowledge the inherent risks and a disregard for the client's right to an unbiased assessment. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying potential conflicts of interest. This involves a thorough self-assessment of personal relationships and their potential impact on professional duties. When a conflict is identified, the next step is to consult the firm's ethical guidelines and relevant professional codes of conduct. Transparency and open communication with both the client and the employer are paramount. If the conflict cannot be mitigated through recusal or other measures, the professional should be prepared to withdraw from the engagement to preserve their integrity and the client's trust. Question 19. Process analysis reveals that during a system configuration for a client's real estate portfolio, an IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10 3 consultant identifies a potential noncompliance with a specific local zoning ordinance that could impact the client's planned property development. The client has expressed a strong desire to proceed with the development quickly and has indicated that they prefer to avoid any delays or complications. The consultant is aware that fully addressing the zoning issue might require significant rework and could potentially delay the project timeline. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action for the consultant? Option A. Immediately inform the client about the potential zoning noncompliance. Explain the implications and propose a clear plan to address it, even if it impacts the project timeline. Option B. Downplay the significance of the zoning noncompliance to the client, assuring them that it is a minor detail that can be addressed later to maintain project momentum. Option C. Proceed with the configuration as planned, assuming the zoning issue is minor and unlikely to be discovered, to avoid delaying the client's project. Option D. Inform the client about the zoning issue, but suggest that they seek independent legal counsel without offering any specific guidance on how to resolve it within the TRIRIGA system. The correct answer is A. Immediately inform the client about the potential zoning noncompliance, explain the implications, and propose a clear plan to address it, even if it impacts the project timeline. Explanation. This scenario presents a common ethical dilemma in real estate management, where a consultant might be tempted to overlook or downplay a compliance issue to secure a project or maintain a client relationship. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate business pressures with the long-term professional and regulatory obligations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that all actions align with ethical standards and the specific regulatory framework governing IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3. Application consultants. The correct approach involves transparently reporting the identified compliance gap to the client and proposing a remediation plan. This aligns with the core ethical principles of honesty, integrity, and professional responsibility. By proactively addressing the issue, the consultant upholds the trust placed in them by the client and demonstrates a commitment to regulatory adherence, which is paramount in real estate management. This approach also mitigates future risks for both the client and the consultant, preventing potential penalties or reputational damage. The IBM TRIRIGA framework, like many professional consulting engagements, implicitly or explicitly requires adherence to relevant real estate laws and regulations, and failing to disclose a known noncompliance would be a breach of this trust and professional duty. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the compliance issue, hoping it goes unnoticed. This is ethically unacceptable as it constitutes a failure to act with due diligence and honesty. It violates the principle of professional integrity and could lead to significant legal and financial repercussions for the client if the noncompliance is discovered later. Furthermore, it exposes the consultant to accusations of negligence or even complicity in regulatory violations. Another incorrect approach would be to disclose the issue, but without offering a clear path to resolution, or to downplay its severity. This demonstrates a lack of commitment to client service and problem solving, and still risks the client not fully understanding the implications, potentially leading to continued noncompliance. This approach fails to meet the professional standard of providing comprehensive and actionable advice. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear assessment of the identified issue against the relevant regulatory framework. The consultant must then consider the potential impact of the issue on the client and the potential consequences of inaction. Transparency and open communication with the client are crucial. The consultant should always aim to provide solutions and guidance that ensure compliance and protect the client's interests, even if it means delivering difficult news. Prioritizing ethical conduct and regulatory adherence over short-term gains is fundamental to maintaining professional credibility and fostering long-term client relationships. Question 20. Consider a scenario where, after successfully completing a project for a real estate firm that involved extensive analysis of their portfolio's underperforming assets and development of a strategic divestment plan, you are approached by a different real estate investment group for a preliminary discussion about their own portfolio challenges. During this introductory meeting, you are tempted to allude to the specific types of challenges and the innovative solutions you implemented for your previous client to impress the potential new client, without directly revealing their identity or proprietary data. What is the most ethically sound course of action? Option A. Briefly describe the general nature of the challenges faced by your previous client and the broad strokes of the solutions implemented, emphasizing the positive outcomes achieved. To showcase your capabilities, Option B. Offer to share anonymized data points from your previous project that illustrate the types of financial metrics you analyzed and the general strategic approaches you considered, to give the potential client a concrete example of your analytical depth. Option C. Politely decline to discuss specific client engagements, stating that all client information is held in strict confidence, and offer to discuss general industry best practices and your problem-solving methodologies without referencing any past client-specific situation. Option D. Suggest that you could provide a more detailed overview of your past successes if the potential client signs a preliminary non-disclosure agreement, which would allow you to discuss specific, albeit anonymized, case studies. The correct answer is C. Politely decline to discuss specific client engagements, stating that all client information is held in strict confidence, and offer to discuss general industry best practices and your problem-solving methodologies without referencing any past client's specific situation. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma common in real estate management, where a consultant might be tempted to leverage confidential information gained during a client engagement for personal or future business gain. The challenge lies in balancing the consultant's professional obligations to the current client with potential future opportunities, all while adhering to strict ethical codes and regulatory frameworks governing real estate professionals. The core conflict is between loyalty and potential self-interest. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach prioritizes client confidentiality and avoids any appearance of impropriety. This aligns with the fundamental ethical principles of trust, integrity, and fiduciary duty that underpin professional real estate consulting. Specifically, it upholds the IBM TRIRIGA Real Estate Manager V10. 3 application consultants' responsibility to act in the best interest of their client and to safeguard sensitive information. This approach prevents conflicts of interest and maintains the consultant's reputation and the integrity of the consulting profession. It directly reflects the expected conduct outlined in professional codes of ethics that emphasize discretion and the avoidance of using client-specific data for unauthorized purposes. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves subtly hinting at the client's strategic plans to a potential future client during an introductory meeting. This is an ethical failure because it breaches client confidentiality. The information shared, even if not explicitly stated as confidential, was obtained through a professional engagement and is proprietary. This action violates the trust placed in the consultant and could lead to legal repercussions and severe damage to the consultant's professional standing. It also creates a conflict of interest by prioritizing potential future business over the current client's interests. Another incorrect approach is to use the detailed market analysis and financial projections developed for the current client to create a generic case study for marketing materials without explicit client consent. While the intent might be to showcase expertise, this crosses the line of confidentiality. The data, even if anonymized, is derived from a specific client's situation and could inadvertently reveal sensitive information or strategies. Professional ethics require explicit permission before using any client-derived data for marketing, even in a generalized format. A third incorrect approach is to offer a competitor of the current client a preview of the types of solutions the consultant can implement based on the knowledge gained from the current client's challenges. This is a direct violation of loyalty and confidentiality. It constitutes a betrayal of the current client's trust and creates a significant conflict of interest, potentially harming the current client's competitive position. This action is fundamentally unethical and likely illegal, exposing the consultant to severe penalties. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field must adopt a decision-making framework that consistently prioritizes ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This involves a clear understanding of confidentiality agreements, professional codes of conduct, and the potential ramifications of any action. When faced with a situation involving client information and potential future opportunities, the professional should always err on the side of caution, seeking explicit consent for any use of client data and strictly avoiding any actions that could be perceived as a conflict of interest or a breach of trust. A robust internal policy on data handling and client confidentiality, coupled with regular ethical training, is crucial for navigating such dilemmas.